The stranger in Quinn Yates' barn had eyes like a cornered animal, and when she spoke of what brought her there, his throat went tight with unshed tears for the first time in 20 years. Quinn had returned from checking his north fence line on that bitter February afternoon in 1884, the Montana wind cutting through his coat like a blade. His ranch sat 15 miles outside of Fargo, North Dakota, a sprawling piece of land he had worked alone since his parents passed 3 winters back. At 32 years old, Quinn had grown accustomed to solitude, to the sound of his own footsteps echoing in the empty house, to conversations held only with his horses and the occasional drifter passing through looking for work. He had built walls around his heart as sturdy as the ones surrounding his property, convinced that loneliness was simply the price of independence. The barn door hung slightly ajar when he approached, which sent his hand instinctively to the rifle on his saddle. He always secured that door. Always. Quinn dismounted slowly, his boots crunching in the frozen mud as he crept forward. Inside, the familiar smell of hay and horses greeted him, but something else lingered in the air, something foreign. Fear, perhaps, or desperation. His eyes adjusted to the dim interior, and that was when he saw her. She was huddled in the corner of an empty stall, wrapped in a threadbare shawl that must have done little against the cold. Her dark hair hung in tangled waves around a face smudged with dirt, and her dress, once perhaps a respectable blue calico, was torn and stained. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They were a startling shade of green, bright against the grime, and they held a wildness born of terror and exhaustion. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please do not send me back." Quinn lowered his rifle slowly, holding up one hand. "I am not going to hurt you, miss. You are freezing. Come up to the house." She shook her head violently, pressing herself harder against the wall. "He will find me. He said he would kill me if I ran again, and this time I believe him. I should not have stopped here. I should not have put you in danger." "Who?" Quinn kept his voice gentle, the same tone he used with spooked horses. "Who is looking for you?" Her lips trembled, and for a moment he thought she might bolt like a deer. Instead, she seemed to collapse inward, her shoulders sagging with defeat. "My husband, Samuel Brennan. Have you heard of him?" Quinn felt ice slide down his spine. Every man within 200 miles had heard of Samuel Brennan, the wealthy cattle baron who controlled most of the land between Fargo and Bismarck. He was known for his ruthless business dealings and his temper, which could turn violent after his third whiskey. Quinn had met him once at a cattle auction and had found him to be exactly the kind of man he despised. Arrogant, cruel, and convinced that money made him above the law. "You are his wife?" Quinn asked carefully. "Sophia Brennan," she said, and the name seemed to cause her physical pain. "Though I wish to God I was not. I wish I had died before I ever met him." "Come inside," Quinn said again, more firmly this time. "Whatever your troubles, you will freeze to death out here. We can talk where it is warm." Sophia studied him for a long moment, those green eyes searching his face for deception or danger. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her, because she nodded slowly and tried to stand. Her legs gave out immediately, and Quinn rushed forward to catch her before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing, he realized with alarm, just skin and bones beneath the ragged dress. "When did you last eat?" he asked, already knowing the answer would not be good. "I do not remember," she admitted, her voice so faint he had to strain to hear it. "2 days ago, perhaps. There was an apple I found near the road." Quinn swept her up into his arms, ignoring her weak protest. She was trembling violently, and he could feel the heat of fever radiating through her thin clothing. He carried her across the yard to the house, kicking the door open and bringing her straight to the fire. The embers were still glowing from the morning, and he quickly stoked them back to life, adding logs until flames crackled and danced. He settled her into his mother's old rocking chair, the only piece of furniture in the house that held any warmth or comfort. Then he grabbed every blanket he owned and wrapped them around her shaking form until only her face peeked out. "Stay here," he ordered. "I am going to make you something hot to drink." In the kitchen, Quinn moved with practiced efficiency, stoking the stove and setting water to boil. He made strong tea with honey and brought it to her along with a thick slice of bread and butter. Sophia's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the cup, so Quinn knelt beside her and helped guide it to her lips. She drank greedily, and he watched the color slowly return to her cheeks. "Slowly," he cautioned. "You will make yourself sick." She obeyed, though he could see the effort it cost her. After she had finished half the tea and a few bites of bread, Quinn pulled up a chair and sat across from her. Now that she was in better light, he could see the bruises. They modeled her arms in various stages of healing, purple and yellow and green. One side of her face bore the fading mark of a hand. "How long have you been running?" he asked quietly. "3 days," Sophia replied, clutching the warm cup like a lifeline. "I waited until he went to Bismarck on business. I took one of the horses and rode as hard as I could, but I am not a good rider. The horse threw me yesterday, and I have been on foot since then. I saw your barn and I just needed to rest for a few hours. I was going to leave before you returned." "Where were you going?" "Anywhere. It does not matter as long as it is far from him." Her voice broke on the last word and tears began to slide down her dirty cheeks. "You do not understand what he is like. You cannot understand." "Then tell me," Quinn said gently. "Tell me everything." And she did. Once Sophia started talking, the words poured out of her like water from a broken dam, and Quinn sat transfixed, his heart breaking with every sentence. She told him how her father, a banker in St. Paul, Minnesota, had lost everything in a bad investment when she was 20 years old. How Samuel Brennan had appeared like a savior, offering to pay off her father's debts in exchange for Sophia's hand in marriage. How her father, desperate and ashamed, had agreed without consulting her. "I was 21, she said, her voice hollow. "I had never even been courted properly. I did not want to marry him, but my father begged me. He said it was the only way to save our family from ruin. So I agreed. I thought perhaps Samuel would be kind, that perhaps we could build a life together." She laughed bitterly at her own naivety. The wedding had been a grand affair, the whole territory invited to witness Samuel Brennan's triumph in securing a beautiful young bride. The first few weeks had been tolerable. Samuel had been almost charming, showering her with gifts and compliments. But then the mask had slipped. It started with criticism. Her dress was wrong, her hair was not styled properly, she smiled too much at other men. Then came the controlling behavior. She was not allowed to leave the house without his permission. She could not write letters to her family without him reading them first. He chose what she wore, what she ate, who she spoke to, and when she dared to object, the violence began. "The first time he hit me, I thought it was my fault," Sophia whispered, staring into the fire. "He said I had embarrassed him at a dinner party, that I had made him look weak in front of his associates. He apologized afterward, said it would never happen again. But it did. Again and again and again. The beatings grew worse over the 3 years of their marriage." Sophia learned to hide the bruises, to make excuses when she appeared in public with a black eye or a split lip. The isolation was almost worse than the physical abuse. Samuel had systematically cut her off from everyone who cared about her. Her letters to her family were intercepted and destroyed. When her mother tried to visit, Samuel turned her away at the door, claiming Sophia was ill. Eventually, her family stopped trying. "2 months ago, I discovered I was with child," Sophia continued, and Quinn saw fresh tears streaming down her face. I was terrified. I could not imagine bringing a baby into that house, into that life. But part of me hoped that perhaps it would change him, that he would be gentler if I was carrying his heir. Quinn already knew how this story ended, could see it in the grief etched into every line of her face. What happened? He asked, though his throat was so tight he could barely speak. He came home drunk one night, angry about some business deal that had fallen through. I tried to stay out of his way, but he found me in the kitchen. He started yelling, accusing me of all sorts of things. When I tried to calm him, he shoved me. I fell against the table. Her hands moved unconsciously to her stomach. I lost the baby 3 days later. There was so much blood. The doctor said I nearly died. Quinn felt wetness on his cheeks and realized he was crying. He could not remember the last time he had shed tears, not even at his parents' funeral. But this woman's story had broken something open inside him, some long, locked door in his heart. Samuel blamed me, Sophia said. Said it was my fault for being clumsy, for provoking him. He did not even seem sad about the child. I think he was relieved. After that, something changed in me. I realized that if I stayed, he would eventually kill me, so I started planning. I hid small amounts of food. I memorized his schedule, and when he left for Bismarck, I ran. She fell silent, exhausted from the telling. Quinn reached out slowly and took her hand. It was small and cold in his, the fingers delicate despite the calluses. "You are safe here," he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. "I will not let him take you back, I swear it." Sophia looked at him with those devastating green eyes, and he saw hope flicker there, fragile as a candle flame in the wind. "You do not know him," she whispered. "He will come looking for me. He will tear this territory apart to find me, and when he does, he will kill you for harboring me." "Let him try," Quinn said grimly. "This is my land, and you are under my protection now. Samuel Brennan does not scare me." It was not entirely true. Samuel Brennan did scare him, or at least the power the man wielded did. But Quinn had meant what he said. Some lines could not be uncrossed, and allowing a woman to be dragged back to her abuser was one of them. His mother had raised him to believe that strength meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. His father had taught him that a man's word was his bond. And Quinn had just given his word. Over the next few days, Sophia slowly began to heal. Quinn set her up in his parents' old bedroom, the only room in the house besides his own that had a proper bed. He brought her meals and hot tea, and gradually the fever that had gripped her broke. The color returned to her cheeks, and the wildness in her eyes softened into something more human. Quinn found himself watching her when he thought she was not looking, studying the way she moved, the sound of her voice when she thanked him for some small kindness. She was beautiful, he realized, in a way that had nothing to do with her features and everything to do with the strength he saw in her. This was a woman who had survived hell and chosen to fight for her freedom. That took a courage Quinn could barely fathom. On the 4th day, Sophia insisted on getting out of bed. Quinn protested, but she waved him off with a determination he was beginning to recognize. "I cannot stay in that room forever," she said, "and I refuse to be useless. You have been kind enough to take me in. The least I can do is help around the house." Quinn wanted to argue that she owed him nothing, that her presence was payment enough for the loneliness that had lifted from his shoulders. But he could see that she needed this, needed to feel capable and productive after years of being told she was worthless. So he relented and let her help with small tasks, preparing vegetables for dinner, mending a torn shirt, sweeping the floors. They fell into an easy rhythm, working side by side in comfortable silence. Quinn discovered that Sophia had a quick wit and a talent for storytelling. Over dinner that night, she told him about growing up in St. Paul. about sneaking books from her father's library and reading by candlelight long after she was supposed to be asleep. She had dreamed of becoming a teacher, she admitted, of opening a school for girls who otherwise would have no access to education. Samuel thought it was ridiculous, she said, pushing food around her plate. He said a woman's place was in the home, that too much learning made females hysterical. He burned all my books the first month we were married. Quinn felt anger rise in his chest, hot and fierce. A man like that does not deserve the title, he said. My mother taught me to read and write. She was the smartest person I ever knew. My father always said marrying her was the best decision he ever made because she made him think. Sophia smiled, and it transformed her face, chasing away the shadows. Your parents sound wonderful. You must miss them terribly. Every day, Quinn admitted. They died during a harsh winter, both of them within a week of each other, pneumonia. I think my father could not bear to be without my mother, so he just let himself go. They were married for 35 years and never spent a night apart. That is beautiful, Sophia said softly, to love someone so completely. Their eyes met across the table, and Quinn felt something shift between them, some invisible thread pulling tight. He looked away first, unsettled by the intensity of what he had seen in her gaze. The next morning, Quinn was feeding the horses when he heard riders approaching. His hand went immediately to his rifle, and he called out a warning to Sophia, who was in the house. She appeared in the doorway, her face pale with fear. Hide, Quinn ordered, but she shook her head. If it is him, hiding will not help. He will tear this place apart. Quinn's jaw tightened as 3 riders came into view. Relief flooded through him when he realized none of them was Samuel Brennan. Instead, it was his neighbor, Frank Morrison, along with 2 ranch hands Quinn recognized from town. Quinn, Frank called out, tipping his hat. He was a weathered man in his 50s, honest and hardworking. Sorry to trouble you, but we are looking for someone. A woman. Samuel Brennan's wife has gone missing, and he is offering a reward for information leading to her return. Quinn felt Sophia tense beside him, but he kept his expression neutral. What makes you think she would be here? We are checking every ranch and farm within 100 miles, Frank explained. Brennan is beside himself with worry, says his wife is delicate, not well in the head. He is afraid she might hurt herself. Quinn nearly laughed at the audacity of the lie. Instead, he said calmly, I have not seen any strange women around here, Frank. Just me and my livestock. Frank's gaze slid to Sophia, who had stepped fully into the doorway now. Quinn could feel his heart pounding, but he forced himself to remain still. Who is this, then? Frank asked, and there was no suspicion in his voice, only curiosity. Quinn made a split-second decision. This is my cousin, Sarah. She is visiting from Montana, helping me get the ranch in order. It was a thin lie, but Frank seemed to accept it. He nodded to Sophia politely. Madam, sorry to disturb you folks. We will be moving on now. As the riders disappeared over the rise, Quinn let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Sophia was shaking beside him. That was too close, she whispered. He is already searching for me. We do not have much time. Time for what? Quinn asked, turning to face her. Before he finds me. Before he comes here and realizes you lied to protect me. She gripped his arm urgently. Quinn, you have to let me go. I can keep moving, find somewhere farther away. I cannot let you risk everything for me. Where will you go? Quinn asked, frustration creeping into his voice. You have no money, no horse, nowhere to run. And even if you did, how long before someone recognizes you? Samuel has people everywhere. You said so yourself. Then what am I supposed to do? Sophia demanded, and he heard the despair in her voice. I cannot hide here forever. Sooner or later, someone will figure out who I am. Quinn was quiet for a long moment, thinking. An idea had been forming in the back of his mind, something radical and possibly insane, but it might be the only way to keep her safe. "You could stay," he said slowly. "Not as yourself, as someone else." Sophia frowned. "I do not understand." "Your cousin's story worked for now, but it will not hold up to scrutiny. People will ask questions, want to know about your family in Montana." He paused, gathering courage. "But if you were my wife, no one would question your presence here. Wives come out from back east all the time to join their husbands." Sophia stared at him as if he had gone mad. "You are suggesting we get married. Quinn, we barely know each other." "I know," he said quickly. "And I am not suggesting a real marriage, just a legal one on paper. It would give you protection, a new name. Samuel could not touch you if you were legally married to someone else, and even if he suspected, he would have no proof. We would say we met through letters, that we married before you came out here." "That is insane," Sophia said, but he could hear the wheels turning in her mind, considering the possibility. "Maybe," Quinn admitted. "But can you think of a better option?" She could not, and they both knew it. Still, Sophia hesitated, worrying her lower lip between her teeth. "It is not fair to you," she said finally. "You would be tying yourself to a woman you do not love, giving up any chance of finding real happiness." Quinn met her eyes steadily. "I have been alone for a long time, Sophia. I have made my peace with that. But if I can use my name and my land to give you a chance at freedom, then that is worth more to me than some distant possibility of romance." It was not entirely honest. Already, Quinn could feel something growing between them, some tender shoot pushing up through frozen ground. But he did not want to burden her with that, not when she was still healing from so much trauma. After a long silence, Sophia nodded. "All right," she said quietly. "If you are certain this is what you want, then yes, I will marry you." They rode into Fargo 2 days later, both of them tense and watchful. Quinn had given Sophia one of his mother's old dresses, a simple gray wool that fit her reasonably well after some quick alterations. She had pinned up her hair and scrubbed her face clean, and the transformation was remarkable. She looked like any other respectable frontier woman, tired but determined. The town was busy with mid-morning activity, wagons rolling down the muddy main street and people hurrying between shops. Quinn kept Sophia close as they made their way to the small courthouse where marriages were recorded. His hand rested on the small of her back, a gesture that felt both protective and strangely intimate. Judge Harrison was a kind man in his 60s who had known Quinn's father. He smiled warmly when they entered his office. "Quinn Yates, as I live and breathe," he said, standing to shake Quinn's hand. "It has been too long, son. What brings you to town?" "We need to register a marriage," Quinn said, hoping his voice sounded steady. "This is Sophia. We were married by a traveling preacher 2 weeks ago, and we need to make it legal." It was not uncommon for couples on the frontier to marry before officials could be found, so Judge Harrison did not question the story. He simply pulled out the necessary paperwork and began filling it in. "Sophia what?" he asked, pen poised. "Bailey," Sophia said quickly, giving her mother's maiden name. "Sophia Bailey." Quinn glanced at her in surprise. He had not thought to ask her for a false name, but she had clearly been prepared. Judge Harrison wrote it down without comment. "And where are you from, Mrs. Yates?" "Minnesota originally," Sophia said, which was true enough. "But I have been traveling for some time." The judge nodded and continued with his questions. Within 30 minutes, they had signed all the necessary documents and been declared legally married in the eyes of the law. Quinn paid the fee, and they walked out into the cold sunshine as husband and wife. "Mrs. Yates," Sophia said wonderingly as they rode back toward the ranch. "It sounds so strange." "You can still go by Sophia Bailey if you prefer," Quinn offered. "I just thought having my name legally might offer more protection." "No, you are right," She was quiet for a moment. "Thank you, Quinn. I know this is not what you planned for your life, but you have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope." Quinn felt his chest tighten with emotion. "You have given me something too," he said. "These past few days, having you at the ranch, it has reminded me what it is like to not be alone. I did not realize how much I had missed having someone to talk to share meals with. So maybe this arrangement is not as one-sided as you think." They rode in comfortable silence after that, the winter landscape stretching out around them in shades of white and gray. When they reached the ranch, Sophia dismounted and stood for a moment, looking at the house and barn as if seeing them with new eyes. "This is my home now," she said softly. "I suppose I should start thinking of it that way." Over the following weeks, they settled into their new life together. Quinn gave Sophia free rein to make changes to the house, and she threw herself into the work with enthusiasm. She cleaned and organized, planted herbs in pots by the kitchen window, and hung curtains his mother had sewn years ago. The house began to feel lived in again, warm and welcoming in a way it had not been since his parents died. They maintained separate bedrooms, though sometimes Quinn would wake in the night and hear Sophia crying softly through the walls. On those nights, he would lie awake, wishing he could comfort her, but not wanting to overstep the boundaries of their arrangement. This was a marriage of convenience and protection, nothing more. He had to keep reminding himself of that, even as his feelings for her deepened with each passing day. Sophia proved to be remarkably capable. She learned to manage the chickens and helped Quinn with smaller ranch tasks. She was an excellent cook, transforming his simple meals into something approaching delicious. And in the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk, sharing stories about their lives and dreams. Quinn learned that Sophia loved poetry, particularly the works of Emily Dickinson. He learned that she was afraid of thunder but found snowstorms beautiful. He learned that she had wanted 6 children before her marriage to Samuel, but now the thought of pregnancy terrified her. "I do not think I could survive losing another child," she admitted one night, staring into the flames. "It would break me completely." "You are stronger than you think," Quinn said gently. "Look at everything you have survived. You are still here, still fighting. That takes incredible strength." Sophia looked at him with such gratitude that it made his heart ache. "You see me differently than anyone else ever has," she said. "Samuel made me feel worthless, like I was nothing more than a possession, but you treat me like a person, like my thoughts and feelings matter." "They do matter," Quinn insisted. "You matter, Sophia. You deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. What Samuel did to you, that was not love. That was not even close to what love should be." "What should love be?" she asked quietly. Quinn thought about his parents, about the way his father would look at his mother like she hung the moon, the way his mother would laugh at his father's terrible jokes. "I think love should be partnership," he said slowly. "Two people choosing each other every day, supporting each other through the hard times and celebrating together during the good ones. It should make you feel safe and valued, not afraid." "That sounds wonderful," Sophia whispered. "I hope I get to experience that someday." "Me too," Quinn thought but did not say. Instead, he added another log to the fire and changed the subject. Spring came late that year, but when it finally arrived, it transformed the ranch into something magical. Green shoots pushed up through the melting snow, and the creek that ran through Quinn's property swelled with runoff. Sophia spent hours outside, breathing in the fresh air and helping Quinn prepare the fields for planting. One afternoon in early April, they were working together to repair a section of fence when Sophia suddenly went rigid beside him. Quinn followed her gaze and felt his blood run cold. 3 riders were approaching from the east, and even from a distance, he recognized the lead figure. Samuel Brennan sat tall in his saddle, flanked by two men who looked like hired guns. He was a handsome man in his early 40s, Quinn noted with distaste, well-dressed and confident, the kind of man who expected the world to bend to his will. "Go into the house," Quinn said quietly to Sophia. "Do not come out no matter what you hear." "Quinn," she started, but he cut her off. "Please, Sophia, trust me." She nodded and hurried toward the house, keeping her face turned away from the approaching riders. Quinn took a deep breath and walked forward to meet Samuel Brennan, making sure to position himself between the man and the house. "Can I help you?" Quinn called out, keeping his voice neutral. Brennan pulled his horse to a stop a few yards away, his cold eyes assessing Quinn with open disdain. "I am looking for my wife," he said bluntly. "Sophia Brennan. I have reason to believe she may have passed through this area." "I heard about that," Quinn said carefully. "Shame about your wife going missing, but I have not seen any strange women around here." "No." Brennan's gaze slid past Quinn toward the house. "That is funny, because one of my men swears he saw a woman matching my wife's description riding into Fargo with you a few weeks back." Quinn's pulse quickened, but he kept his expression calm. "That would have been my wife, Sophia Yates. We were married in February." The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brennan's face went very still, his eyes hardening to chips of ice. "Your wife," he repeated slowly. "How interesting. And what did you say her name was before you married?" "Sophia Bailey," Quinn replied, grateful that they had planned for this possibility. "From Minnesota." "Quite a coincidence," Brennan said softly, and there was something dangerous in his voice now. "My wife's maiden name was also Sophia, and she is also from Minnesota." "It is a common enough name," Quinn said with a shrug he did not feel. "And Minnesota is a big place." Brennan studied him for a long, tense moment. Then, without warning, he dismounted and started walking toward the house. Quinn moved to block his path. "I would appreciate it if you did not enter my home uninvited," Quinn said firmly. "You have no authority here." "I am one of the largest landowners in this territory," Brennan snarled. "I have authority wherever I damn well please." "Not on my property, you do not," Quinn shot back. "And if you take one more step, I will consider it trespassing." For a moment, Quinn thought Brennan might actually strike him. The man's face flushed red with anger, his hands clenching into fists. But then the door to the house opened, and Sophia stepped out onto the porch. She looked different than she had 3 weeks ago, Quinn realized. Healthier, stronger, more confident. She wore a simple blue dress with a white apron, and her hair was neatly braided. She looked like exactly what she claimed to be, a rancher's wife. "Is there a problem?" Sophia asked, her voice remarkably steady. Brennan's eyes locked onto her, and Quinn saw recognition flare there immediately. But he also saw confusion because this woman did not act like his cowering, beaten wife. This woman stood tall and met his gaze without flinching. "Sophia," Brennan breathed, and there was something almost hungry in the way he said her name. "I am sorry," Sophia said coolly. "Do I know you?" "Do you—" Brennan started forward, but Quinn stepped in front of him again. "You are my wife, damn it. I have been searching for you for 2 months." "I think you are mistaken," Sophia said. "I am Sophia Yates, and I have been married to Quinn since February. Perhaps you are looking for someone else." "Do not play games with me," Brennan hissed. "I know who you are. I know every inch of you. That scar on your left shoulder from when you fell as a child, the birthmark on your—" "Enough," Quinn interrupted, his voice hard. "You are making my wife uncomfortable with your inappropriate comments. I think it is time for you to leave." Brennan turned on him with such fury that his men moved their hands toward their guns. "She is my wife, you ignorant fool. I have a marriage certificate that proves it. You have stolen her from me, and I will see you hang for it." "I have a marriage certificate too," Quinn said calmly, pulling the folded document from his pocket. "Dated February 15th, witnessed and signed by Judge Harrison in Fargo. If your wife ran away from you, that is your business. But Sophia Yates has been living here as my lawfully wedded wife for the past 2 months, and I have witnesses who can confirm it. It was a bluff, mostly. They had few actual witnesses to their supposed marriage." But Brennan did not know that, and Quinn could see uncertainty creeping into the man's expression. "This is not over," Brennan said finally, his voice low and threatening. "I will go to the authorities. I will prove that you have taken my wife and hidden her here under a false name." "You do that," Quinn said. "And while you are at it, maybe you should explain why your wife would run away from you in the first place. What kind of man inspires that kind of fear in his own spouse?" Brennan's face went purple with rage. For a moment, Quinn was certain the man would pull his gun and end this conversation with violence. But then Sophia spoke again, and her words cut through the tension like a blade. "If you truly believe I am your missing wife," she said quietly, "then I pity her. Because any woman desperate enough to run from her husband in the dead of winter must have been living in hell. I hope she found freedom, wherever she is. I hope she found someone who treats her with the kindness and respect she deserves." Their eyes met, and Quinn saw something pass between them, some acknowledgement of all that Sophia had endured and survived. Brennan saw it too, and the realization seemed to hit him like a physical blow. His wife was not coming back. She would rather die than return to him. "This is not over," he repeated, but the fire had gone out of his voice. He mounted his horse and turned to leave, his men following. At the edge of Quinn's property, he stopped and looked back one more time. "You made a mistake, Sophia," he called out. "You think you are safe, but you are not. I always get what belongs to me." Then he was gone, disappearing over the rise in a cloud of dust. Quinn stood frozen until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely. Then his legs gave out, and he sat down hard in the dirt, adrenaline draining from his body all at once. Sophia rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. "Are you all right?" she asked urgently. "I am fine," Quinn managed. "Are you?" To his surprise, Sophia started laughing. It was a wild, slightly hysterical sound, but there was genuine joy in it too. "I stood up to him," she said wonderingly. "For the first time in 3 years, I stood up to Samuel Brennan, and I did not fall apart. I did not let him make me small." Quinn pulled her into his arms without thinking, and she clung to him, still laughing and crying at the same time. He held her tight, feeling her heart racing against his chest, breathing in the scent of her hair. "You were magnificent," he said fiercely. "So brave and strong. I was so proud of you." Sophia pulled back to look at him, and her eyes were shining with unshed tears. "I could not have done it without you," she said. "Knowing you were there, knowing I was not alone, it gave me courage I did not know I had." They stayed like that for a long moment, Quinn kneeling in the dirt with Sophia in his arms. And somewhere in that moment, the last of Quinn's defenses crumbled. He was in love with her. Desperately, completely, hopelessly in love. Not with the idea of having a wife or the comfort of companionship, but with Sophia herself. With her strength and her kindness, her fierce determination and her gentle heart. But he could not tell her that. Not now, possibly not ever. She had just escaped one marriage built on control and possession. The last thing she needed was another man claiming ownership of her heart. So Quinn did the hardest thing he had ever done. He let her go and helped her to her feet, keeping his expression carefully neutral. "We should probably prepare for him to come back," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "Maybe with the law this time." Sophia nodded, wiping her eyes. "What will we do if he brings the sheriff?" "Tell the truth," Quinn said. "That you are Sophia Yates, my legally married wife, and you have done nothing wrong. Your marriage certificate is dated before his supposed wife went missing. As far as anyone can prove, you are exactly who you say you are." It was a thin defense, but it was all they had. Over the next few days, they prepared for the worst. Quinn made sure all their paperwork was in order and practiced their story until it was seamless. But days turned into weeks, and Brennan did not return. "Maybe he gave up," Sophia said one evening in late April, though she did not sound convinced. "Maybe," Quinn agreed, equally doubtful. Men like Samuel Brennan did not give up easily, especially not when their pride had been wounded. But whatever the reason for the reprieve, Quinn was grateful for it. Spring blossomed into early summer, and life on the ranch fell into a comfortable rhythm. Quinn taught Sophia to ride properly, and she proved to be a quick learner. Soon, she was accompanying him on trips to check the herd and repair fences, her laughter ringing out across the prairie when her horse decided to be stubborn. They planted a vegetable garden together, Sophia insisting that they needed fresh produce to get through the winter. Quinn had never bothered with such things when he was alone, but he found himself enjoying the work when it was shared. There was something deeply satisfying about kneeling in the dirt beside Sophia, their hands working the soil together, planning for a future that felt increasingly real. In June, they made another trip to Fargo for supplies. Quinn noticed that Sophia walked a little taller now, smiled more easily. The haunted look had faded from her eyes, replaced by something that might have been contentment. She greeted the shopkeepers by name and laughed at their jokes, and no one questioned her place at Quinn's side. They were loading supplies into the wagon when Quinn heard someone call his name. He turned to see Judge Harrison walking toward them, smiling warmly. "Quinn, Sophia," the judge greeted them. "Good to see you both. How is married life treating you?" "Very well, thank you," Quinn said, and it was not a lie. Despite the unusual circumstances of their union, despite the constant low-level fear of Brennan's return, Quinn had never been happier. "I am glad to hear it," Judge Harrison said. "Actually, I am glad I ran into you. Samuel Brennan came to see me a few weeks back, asking questions about your marriage." Quinn felt Sophia tense beside him. "What kind of questions?" he asked carefully. "He wanted to see the marriage certificate, claimed you were harboring his missing wife." The judge shook his head. "I showed him the paperwork, of course. All legal and proper, dated well before his wife disappeared. He left looking like he had swallowed a lemon." Relief washed through Quinn so intensely he felt dizzy. "So he accepted it." "He did not have much choice," Judge Harrison replied. "The law is clear. You are married to Sophia Bailey, now Sophia Yates. Whatever happened to Samuel Brennan's wife has nothing to do with you." He paused, his sharp eyes moving between them. "Though I will say the resemblance is striking. If I did not know better, I might wonder myself." Quinn felt his stomach drop, but Judge Harrison held up a hand. "But I do know better," he continued quietly. "I have been a judge for 30 years, and I have seen my share of men like Brennan. Rich, powerful, used to getting their way. I have also seen my share of women with bruises they try to hide." His gaze rested on Sophia with unexpected gentleness. "If a woman did escape from such a man, if she found safety and built a new life, well, I would consider that a just outcome. The law is not always the same as justice." "Thank you," Sophia whispered, tears shining in her eyes. Judge Harrison tipped his hat. "You take care of each other. That is all that matters." As they drove home, Sophia leaned against Quinn's shoulder, a gesture of trust that made his heart ache. "He knew," she said softly. "Judge Harrison knew who I really was, and he protected us anyway," Quinn replied. "There are good people in this world, Sophia." People who understand that sometimes the right thing and the legal thing are not the same. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sophia said, "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" Quinn asked, enjoying the cool evening breeze. "This marriage of ours. It started as a practical arrangement, a way to keep me safe." She turned to look at him, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. "But it does not feel like just an arrangement anymore, at least not to me." Quinn's breath caught. "What does it feel like?" he asked carefully. "It feels real," Sophia admitted. "You feel real. The way you look at me, the way you make me laugh, the way you listen when I talk about my dreams. No one has ever made me feel the way you do, safe and valued and seen." She paused, gathering courage. "I think I am falling in love with you, Quinn, and I do not know if that is allowed given the circumstances, but I needed you to know." For a long moment, Quinn could not speak. Joy and fear warred in his chest, each emotion so intense it was almost painful. "Sophia," he finally managed, "I have been in love with you since the day you stood up to Samuel Brennan and refused to let him break you. Maybe even before that. But I did not want to burden you with my feelings, not when you are still healing from so much trauma." "You could never be a burden," Sophia said fiercely. "You saved my life, Quinn, not just physically, but in every way that matters. You reminded me that I am worth something, that I deserve kindness. And somewhere along the way, I realized I want this to be a real marriage. Not just on paper, but in every sense of the word." Quinn reached out and cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that had started to fall. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I need you to be certain, Sophia, because once we cross this line, there is no going back. And I need to know that you want this because of how you feel, not because you think you owe me." "I want this," Sophia said firmly. "I want you, not because I owe you, but because you are kind and good and you make me believe in love again. Because when I think about my future, you are in it. Not as a protector or a friend, but as my husband in every way." Quinn kissed her then, soft and gentle, pouring all his love and longing into that single point of contact. Sophia melted against him, her arms wrapping around his neck as she kissed him back with equal passion. It was nothing like the brutal, demanding kisses Samuel Brennan had forced on her. This was tender and sweet, a promise of devotion and respect. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said simply. "I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you, if you will let me." "I love you too," Sophia replied, and the words filled Quinn with such profound happiness he thought his heart might burst. That night, Sophia moved her belongings into Quinn's bedroom, and they began their marriage in truth. Quinn was patient and gentle, always asking permission, always making sure she was comfortable. Sophia cried the first time they made love, not from pain or fear, but from the overwhelming realization that intimacy could be beautiful, that it could be an expression of love rather than an assertion of power. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Sophia traced patterns on Quinn's chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Quinn asked, pressing a kiss to her hair. "For teaching me what love should feel like, for being patient with me, for choosing me." "I will choose you every day for the rest of my life," Quinn promised. "You are my heart, Sophia, my home." Summer passed in a haze of happiness. They worked the ranch together, laughing and talking and stealing kisses when the mood struck. Sophia's nightmares became less frequent, and when they did occur, Quinn was there to hold her until she fell back asleep. They made plans for the future, talking about expanding the herd and maybe hiring a ranch hand or two. In August, Sophia came to Quinn with news that filled them both with equal parts joy and terror. "I am with child," she said, her hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. "I know we did not plan for this, and after what happened before, I am so afraid, but I am also happy, Quinn." "Is that foolish?" "It is not foolish," Quinn assured her, pulling her into his arms. "It is natural to be both happy and scared. I am terrified too, honestly, but we will face this together just like we have faced everything else." "What if something goes wrong?" Sophia whispered. "What if I lose this baby too?" "Then we will grieve together and heal together," Quinn said firmly. "But I have faith that everything will be all right. You are strong and healthy now, and we will get you the best care possible. This baby is going to be fine, Sophia. I can feel it." He was right. Sophia's pregnancy progressed smoothly, her body growing round and healthy with their child. Quinn fussed over her constantly, insisting she rest and eat well, bringing her tea and reading to her in the evenings. Sometimes Sophia would laugh at his overprotectiveness, but Quinn could see the gratitude in her eyes. After years of neglect and abuse, she was not accustomed to being cherished. In December, Frank Morrison stopped by the ranch with unexpected news. "Thought you should know," he said, accepting the coffee Sophia offered him. "Samuel Brennan is leaving the territory, selling all his holdings and moving back east. Rumor is his business partners were not happy about some of his recent behavior and they forced him out." Quinn and Sophia exchanged glances, hope blooming in both their chests. "He is really leaving?" Sophia asked carefully. "Already gone from what I hear," Frank confirmed. "Left about a week ago. Good riddance if you ask me, never liked that man much." After Frank left, Sophia collapsed into Quinn's arms, her whole body shaking with relief. "It is really over," she said wonderingly. "He is gone. I am free." "You were always free," Quinn corrected gently. "But yes, now you do not have to look over your shoulder anymore. You can just be Sophia Yates, rancher's wife, soon to be mother." Their son was born on a cold February night in 1885, exactly 1 year after Sophia had first stumbled into Quinn's barn. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Quinn feared he might lose both Sophia and the baby. But just before dawn, a lusty cry filled the house and the midwife placed a squirming, red-faced infant into Sophia's arms. "A boy," she announced with a smile. "Healthy and strong." Quinn looked down at his wife and son, overcome with emotion. Sophia was exhausted, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, but she had never looked more beautiful. She gazed at their baby with such fierce love that Quinn felt his throat tighten. "What should we name him?" Sophia asked, her finger tracing the baby's tiny features. "I was thinking Thomas," Quinn said. "After my father, Thomas Yates." "Thomas," Sophia repeated, testing the name. "I love it. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the world, little one." The first year of Thomas's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and joyful days. Quinn had never imagined he could love anything as much as he loved his son, unless it was Sophia herself. Watching her with their child, seeing the way she bloomed into motherhood, only deepened his devotion. Sophia proved to be a natural mother, patient and loving even when Thomas was fussy. And when she would look at Quinn across the cradle, her eyes shining with happiness, he would think back to that desperate, terrified woman he had found in his barn and marvel at the transformation. She had not just survived, she had thrived. In the spring of 1886, they made another trip to Fargo for supplies. Thomas, now a chubby, cheerful 14-month-old, charmed everyone they met. As they were leaving the general store, Sophia spotted a woman standing uncertainly by a wagon, a man beside her who was clearly drunk and growing belligerent. "Wait here," Sophia said, handing Thomas to Quinn. Before he could stop her, she had crossed the street to the couple. Quinn could not hear what was said, but he saw Sophia speaking earnestly to the woman, saw her slip something into the woman's hand. When she returned, her face was troubled. "What was that about?" Quinn asked. "That woman," Sophia said quietly. The way her husband was talking to her, the fear in her eyes. "I saw myself 3 years ago, so I gave her some money in the name of Judge Harrison. I told her that if she ever needed help, there were people who would protect her." Quinn pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You are remarkable, do you know that?" "I just know what it is like to feel trapped," Sophia replied. "If I can help even one woman escape that hell, then everything I went through will have had some purpose." They rode home in contemplative silence, Thomas dozing against his mother's shoulder. Quinn thought about the twisting path that had led them to this moment, all the pain and fear that had been required to bring them together. He would not wish Sophia's suffering on anyone, but he could not regret the outcome. That night, after Thomas was asleep and they were lying in bed together, Quinn said, "I have been thinking about something." "Dangerous," Sophia teased, but she was listening. "Your dream of opening a school," Quinn continued, "for girls who would not otherwise have access to education. What if we made that happen?" Sophia propped herself up on one elbow, looking at him in surprise. "What do you mean? We have the space. The old barn is not being used for much. We could convert it into a schoolroom. You could teach reading and writing, arithmetic, whatever you think is important. Give girls the opportunities you wanted for yourself." "Quinn, that would be expensive," Sophia said, though he could see the excitement building in her eyes. "Books and supplies, and we would need to let people know. We will figure it out," Quinn interrupted. "If this is your dream, Sophia, then I want to help you achieve it. You have given me so much. Let me give you this." Sophia kissed him deeply, and when she pulled back, tears were streaming down her face. "Happy tears," she assured him quickly. "I am just overwhelmed." "Yes, Quinn. Yes, I want to do this. I want to build something meaningful, something that helps others." They spent the next several months transforming the old barn into a schoolhouse. Quinn built desks and shelves while Sophia ordered books and supplies. They spread word through the territory that Sophia Yates was opening a school for girls, offering free education to anyone who wanted to learn. The first day of school arrived in September 1886, and Sophia was so nervous she could barely eat breakfast. But when the first students started arriving, shy and uncertain, something clicked into place. By the end of the day, 8 girls ranging from ages 7 to 15 sat in the converted barn, learning their letters and listening raptly as Sophia read from a book of poetry. Quinn watched from the doorway, Thomas on his hip, and felt his heart swell with pride. This was what love looked like, he realized. Not grand gestures or passionate declarations, but the quiet support of helping someone achieve their dreams. The steady choice to build a life together, one decision at a time. The school grew steadily over the next few years. Word spread about the kind teacher who never judged or criticized, who believed every girl had value and potential. Some students came from respectable families in town. Others were the daughters of farmers and ranchers who had never dreamed their girls could learn to read. And a few, Quinn suspected, were running from situations not unlike what Sophia had escaped. To those girls, Sophia gave extra attention, extra kindness. She taught them that education was power, that knowledge could open doors and create opportunities. More than one young woman left Sophia's school and went on to become a teacher herself, spreading that gift even farther. In 1888, Sophia gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Elizabeth after Quinn's mother. And in 1890, another son arrived whom they called James. The house that had once been so silent and empty now rang with the sounds of children laughing and playing. Thomas grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved helping his father with the ranch. Elizabeth was bright and curious, always asking questions and demanding stories. And James was still a baby, but already showing signs of his mother's determination. On a warm summer evening in 1891, Quinn and Sophia sat on the porch watching the sunset, just as they had so many times before. The children were inside, supposedly getting ready for bed, but more likely getting into mischief. From the converted barn, they could hear the faint sound of voices, some of Sophia's older students staying late to finish a project. "You ever regret it?" Sophia asked suddenly. "Taking in a desperate stranger, marrying someone you barely knew?" Quinn looked at her in surprise. Even after 7 years of marriage, Sophia was still beautiful to him, perhaps more so now than ever. Motherhood and purpose had given her a glow that went beyond physical beauty. She was confident now, secure in her worth and her place in the world. "Not for a single moment," Quinn said honestly. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Sophia. You and our children and this life we have built together. I was half alive before you came along. You woke me up, reminded me what it means to truly live." "I feel the same," Sophia said softly. "When I think back to that terrified woman hiding in your barn, I almost cannot believe how far I have come. How far we have come. You gave me a second chance at life, Quinn, and I have tried to honor that gift every single day." "You have done more than honor it," Quinn said, pulling her close. "You have built something beautiful. You have helped dozens of girls find their own strength and voice. You have raised 3 incredible children. You have made this ranch into a home. I am in awe of you, Sophia Yates." She smiled and kissed him, and in that moment, Quinn felt perfectly content. The ranch was prospering, the children were healthy, and the woman he loved more than life itself was safe and happy in his arms. It was everything he had never dared to dream of. The years continued to pass in a blur of seasons and celebrations. Thomas grew tall and strong, eventually taking over more of the ranch work and allowing Quinn to slow down a bit. Elizabeth became a teacher like her mother, eventually taking over the school when Sophia decided to retire at age 50. And James surprised everyone by showing an aptitude for medicine, eventually going east to study and becoming a doctor. Quinn and Sophia grew old together, their hair turning gray and their bodies slowing down. But their love never diminished. If anything, it deepened with each passing year, mellowing into something solid and unshakable. They had weathered storms together, both literal and figurative. They had buried beloved friends and celebrated the births of grandchildren. Through it all, they had chosen each other, again and again. On a crisp autumn day in 1910, Quinn and Sophia sat in their same favorite spot on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the chill. They were both in their 60s now, though Sophia liked to joke that she was aging better than her husband. Thomas ran the ranch with his own wife and children now, and the old house rang with the laughter of a new generation. "Tell me something," Sophia said, her hand finding Quinn's beneath the blankets. "If you could go back to that day in February 1884, knowing everything that would happen, would you do it all again?" Quinn did not even have to think about it. "In a heartbeat," he said. "Every moment of fear and uncertainty, every challenge we faced, it was all worth it to have you in my life. You are my greatest adventure, Sophia, my greatest love." "Mine too," Sophia said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I used to think love was supposed to hurt, that sacrifice meant giving up who you are, but you taught me that real love is about becoming more yourself, not less. You gave me the freedom to grow and dream and become the person I was always meant to be. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. In the distance, they could see their grandchildren playing in the yard, hear Thomas calling them in for supper. This was legacy, Quinn thought, Not just the land or the buildings, but the love and values they had passed down. The knowledge that home was not a place, but the people you chose to build a life with. Quinn Yates passed peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1915, surrounded by his wife and children. Sophia held his hand as he took his last breath, whispering her love and gratitude for the life they had shared. She mourned him deeply, but not with despair. How could she despair when they had been given 31 years of happiness together, when their love had created such beauty in the world? Sophia lived another 5 years, spending her time with her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She never remarried, never even considered it. Quinn had been her great love, her true partner, and no one could replace him. But she did not spend those years in sorrow. Instead, she told stories about the man who had found her in his barn all those years ago, who had given her shelter and protection, and eventually his whole heart. She told their story to anyone who would listen, particularly to young women trapped in difficult situations. She became something of a legend in the territory, the woman who had escaped an abusive marriage and built a new life from nothing. Her school continued for decades after her death, run by Elizabeth, and then by Elizabeth's own daughter. The Yates family ranch prospered and grew, eventually becoming one of the most successful operations in North Dakota. And though the details became hazy with time and retelling, the core of the story remained the same. A lonely rancher had found a desperate woman sheltering in his barn. Her story had moved him to tears and action. And from that unlikely beginning had grown a love that transformed both their lives and echoed through generations. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the darkest moments. That courage and compassion can turn strangers into soulmates. And that home is not where you start, but where you choose to build your life with someone who sees you, truly sees you, and loves you anyway. Years later, when Thomas Yates was an old man himself, his granddaughter asked him about his parents. She had heard the whispers, the rumors about where Sophia had really come from. Thomas smiled and told her the truth, or at least the version his mother had told him when he was old enough to understand. "Your great-grandmother was the bravest person I ever knew," he said. "She escaped from a terrible situation with nothing but her courage and hope. My father gave her shelter when she needed it most, and together they built something beautiful. They loved each other completely, respected each other deeply, and showed all of us what a real marriage should look like." "That is so romantic," his granddaughter sighed. Thomas chuckled. "Romance is not just flowers and poetry," he said. "It is choosing to be kind when you are tired. It is supporting your partner's dreams even when they are different from your own. It is building a life together, one small decision at a time. That is what my parents had. That is what real love looks like." The granddaughter went on to write down the family history, preserving the story of Quinn and Sophia Yates for future generations. It became a treasured family legend, told and retold at gatherings and celebrations. Some details were certainly embellished over time, but the heart of the story remained true. A lonely rancher had found a woman sheltering in his barn in the dead of winter. Her tale of suffering and escape had brought tears to his eyes and awakened his long-dormant heart. He had protected her, married her, and loved her with a devotion that never wavered. And she had loved him back with equal passion, transforming his empty house into a home filled with laughter and purpose. Together, they had proven that it is never too late for a second chance. That love can bloom in the most unexpected places. That courage and compassion can overcome even the darkest circumstances. Their legacy was not just in the children they raised or the school Sophia built, but in the example they set. They showed everyone who knew them what it meant to truly love someone, to choose them every single day and build a life that honored both people's dreams and needs. In the end, that was the real miracle of Quinn and Sophia Yates. Not that they found each other against impossible odds, though that was remarkable enough, but that they took that chance meeting and transformed it into something lasting and beautiful. They built a love that sustained them through decades of challenges and joys. They created a partnership that allowed both of them to become better versions of themselves. And when their story was told generations later, it was not with sadness for what Sophia had endured or anger at the injustice she had suffered. Instead, it was with celebration for what she had overcome and gratitude for the love she had found. Because Sophia Yates was not defined by what had been done to her, but by who she chose to become. And Quinn Yates was remembered not just as the man who saved her, but as the partner who loved her completely and helped her reclaim her own power. Their story became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love. It reminded everyone who heard it that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes. That second chances exist for those brave enough to reach for them. And that sometimes the greatest love stories are not about passion or drama, but about two people choosing each other, again and again, and building something beautiful from the ashes of what came before. The old Yates Ranch still stands today, though it has changed hands many times over the decades. But locals say if you visit on a quiet evening, you can almost feel the presence of Quinn and Sophia, their love still lingering in the air like a benediction. The barn where Sophia first took shelter was eventually torn down and rebuilt, but a small plaque marks the spot where it once stood. It reads simply, "Here in February 1884, love found a way." And that, more than anything, captures the essence of their story. Against all odds, despite tremendous obstacles, love had found a way. It had taken a lonely rancher and a desperate woman and woven their separate threads into something stronger than either could have been alone. It had created a family, a legacy, and a love that would be remembered long after both of them were gone. That is the power of choosing love over fear, of offering compassion to strangers, of believing that everyone deserves a second chance. Quinn and Sophia Yates lived those values every day of their marriage, and in doing so they created something truly extraordinary. Not a perfect life, because no such thing exists, but a good life, a meaningful life, a life filled with purpose and passion and deep, abiding love. Their story ended not with tragedy but with triumph, not with separation but with a love that lasted until death and beyond, living on in the hearts and memories of everyone they touched. It was, in every sense, a happy ending. And sometimes, in this unpredictable world, that is the most remarkable thing of all.